Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Please, if you have not checked out Element RC, they are a small company that does an amazing job. It's a small hobby shop. It's the little guys that make the world go round, and definitely support them. They are supporting events or sponsoring events. They just sponsored an event up here in Pennsylvania near me. So check them out. Also, very new company, Darkside 3D Printing. You can reach both Darkside and Dixieland on Facebook. Send them a PM, send them a message, get in contact with them. You can also email Darkside at the email address in the screen. So, if you missed my last video, I went over a lot of the Darkside stuff that I have. Definitely check them out. Check out that last video. There's a lot of other stuff in that last video as well. Check it out, please. I'm not going to tell you what's in it. Just go look at it, and it's not that long. Check it out. So, but what was in that video, one thing I will tell you, was this guy. The Enduro Builder's Kit from Element RC. If you're unfamiliar with Element, they are a Associated Electronics backed company. It's basically a spin-off of Associated. Has its own division, its own department. And what that does for us is make sure that the Element team stays focused on scale, okay, on trail stuff. And that's a terrific thing for us. So we will not get lost in the race side of things. Now, with that being said, this is not going to be a video on building the kit. It's done. Okay? It's together. I built it. Now, the reason I did it this way is there's going to be tons of build videos, tons of stuff on YouTube. I'm positive of that. And I didn't want to take the time to sit there and do it bit by bit and put it together. And with my schedule and what it would take to do that, I wouldn't be done with it until 90% of other people are talking about the upgrades they've done after they already built it. So I'll still probably fall behind the 8-ball, but at least this way it's done, it's together. If you haven't seen one, you can see this one. If you have any questions at all about it, feel free, throw it in the comments, hit me up. I will tell you anything or tear apart anything, take pictures, take video, whatever you would like. I am more than happy to help. With that being said, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff with this truck right now in this video. If you remember my Hobby Wing Axe series, I did an initial impressions, initial thoughts, kind of what I liked, what I didn't like, but it wasn't a review. It wasn't an overall, this is what is, until I did the final one. Okay, and this truck will probably be a 2 or 3 part. I'm just going to give you what I thought of the build, what I kind of think of it somewhat now. Take it all with a grain of salt. There's going to be 20 million of different opinions about this vehicle. Mine is just nothing more than an idea. It's a thought. It's how I see it. It's not how you have to see it. Also, at the same time, don't get caught up in what everyone else is saying either. If you find somebody that just does not like the truck, maybe they have something against something else and it just comes out on that. Or if you find that somebody just completely loved it and it's not what you thought it was going to be when you receive it. Like I say, everyone has different expectations. This truck is in a very competitive market right now. The kit itself is, as well as the RTR. Both markets are very competitive with pricing and what you get for your dollar. Like I say, take this video with a very, very grain of salt. I'm going to say positive things. I'm going to say things that I wasn't real thrilled about. I don't have anything to say that's completely hateful. I don't operate that way. I didn't have anything to say completely hateful about the Red Cat Gen 8. Let's face it, these are toy trucks. These are tiny trucks. If we have that much resentment, that much animosity towards this, then we need to rethink about our life situation and how we're living it. So, tiny truck. What we're going to talk about first is the build itself. The build itself, it had a lot of, we're going to start with the very first thing is screws. I touched on this with the Red Cat. The Red Cat came with what I thought was very bad screws because I had a couple that just stripped out like crazy. The rest of them seem fine. And a couple of my friends have them, and they have not had really any screws pop up that they had an issue with. I think I just had a couple of defective screws. It happens. This kit, I did not have a single screw problem with any of the hardware. All the hardware worked well. The kit itself went together as a whole smoothly. Everything buttoned together nicely. It was a clean, easy build. In terms of the hardware, though, you will find that the kit itself has a lot of different size screws that sometimes go into the exact same piece of plastic. So what this means for you is if you do not put the correct screw in the correct hole, you risk damaging something. Okay? The transmission, for example, has a total of 4 screws that hold in the bottom of the skid plate. Them 4 screws, 2 of them are longer than the other 2. So whenever you put it together, you do not want to mix the screws up or you will send a screw through and possibly into the gears in the transmission. Also, with that being said, get it in the camera here. If you see the brace, right here's the battery tray. I got the long one installed. That is the long, not the short one. It comes with 2 battery trays if you're unaware of that. This brace that's right here. 2 screws are longer than the other 2 screws. Okay? The long ones, if I'm thinking correctly, are the one that the flashlight's pointing on, lighting up right now. And the short ones are on the upper side. And the reason for that is the chassis, as it contours, they made the plastic thicker to kind of compensate for that contouring. So, and in that case, you're not going to damage anything. You just have the wrong screw in the wrong spot, and you might pop some plastic out of the back side of it. But there's a lot of that going on in this truck. You got to be careful. And especially the people that watch this and have the RTR, don't throw your books away. Keep a hold of stuff because if you, for instance, the RTR, you didn't build it. You took it out of the box. You're driving it around. You tear it apart. You're not going to think about screw sizes, okay? You're probably going to throw it together in a hurry and off you go and maybe too late at that time. So keep your direction booklet. Even if you put the kit together, I keep all mine. Even in racing, building kits, I always kept the instruction booklet. It has your parts list. You're not digging for stuff online. It's done. Keep your booklet. With that being said, inside this transmission, of course, the kit comes with the machined gears. And I'm going to touch on this real quickly. There is barely any play in this transmission with them machine gears. And the actual axles themselves are very tight. Honestly, most of this play that comes out of this is in the drive shafts. They have a little bit of play in the universals of the drive shaft. So just kind of the balls have a little play in them. So just kind of understand that. But it's smooth. And there's really no, you're not going to get that roll or that unexpected movement from the truck. It's nice and tight. I was very happy with that. So, but anyway, inside this transmission with the machine gears, this would be whether you have the machine gears or not. There's a bearing in here. That bearing is on the short side of the output, and that's what it's called, short output. And it goes on to one of, I don't remember which one it is. It's the front or the rear drive shaft, but it's actually that output shaft, and it's called short. There's a long and a short. The short one has a bearing that fits inside of it. That bearing does not drop down in. You will need either use wood, use something to soften keep the outdrive from scratching and keep the bearing surface from scratching up. Either tap it in, put a wood block on both sides, tap it in with a hammer, use a plastic mallet, tap the bearing in, You could possibly throw the bearing in the freezer and you may take it and it may drop right in. Grease the inside of that before you put the bearing in it. Good quality grease is a good thing to do. And that is a builder's tip. That bearing does go where it says it goes. And the reason it's tight is to keep the transmission, everything in line solidly. With that being said, with the way you got to put that bearing in, if that bearing ever fails you, and you are on a event of any kind, or even at your home, the chance of you removing that bearing is very slim without damaging something. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying if you don't have a lot of tools, or if you are at an event, you are not getting the bearing out. In that case, I would say the bearing will last a long time. I'm not saying it won't. The bearing should last a long time. But you may need to have a spare output drive with the bearing already pressed, ready to go in case that bearing ever fails you. So that is another builder's tip. Next builder's tip. There's a small parts tree that has the internal shock parts inside of it. Those internal shock parts are white. They're the only white pieces, and you can tell it's the pistons and the spacers for the shocks themselves. That parts tree, break the plastic parts off of it. You know, all your other parts trees, you're pretty much cutting the parts off, but the plastic for them shocks is a different plastic. If you break them off, they will break clean. You won't have to do hardly anything with them. Maybe touch them up here or there. If you cut them off, you are creating yourself a ton of work that you didn't need to do. So just kind of a little builder's tip with that as well. Now, pretty much getting down to the last things on my builder's tips per se. And then I'm going to start critiquing some of the build and some of the vehicle itself. The links themselves, they go together nice. Very easy to screw the plastic on, I felt. You know, I've put axial kits. I've done all kinds of kits in my time of hobby grade RC. But if you look, and I'll bring this up close to the camera. If you look at my links, you'll notice, like for instance here, camera decides to focus for me. My awesome lighting in here. There's a gap here. Okay, there's a small gap. The threads, same way there. Okay, you can see the gap there. Okay, the threads, the link is not completely submerged. And basically all the links are that way. Okay, all the links you see of mine will be that way. And what I did was I used a dial caliper to get the exact measurement they're giving you in the book. If you take the links and run them tight, you probably went a millimeter or so too far. Now, that's not going to be a make or break deal for the truck, but just so you're aware, dial calipers is your best way to make sure you get an accurate length to what they're telling you in the book, so everything falls in line the way it's supposed to. So if you went and ramrod all your links together, didn't measure nothing, bottomed them all out, I'm going to say your links are all too short, more than likely. Back them off a turn and a half, something of that nature, whatever gets your links to where they need to be, and you're probably fine at that. But just kind of a heads up, that's how all my links were. So dial calipers also help you in getting the correct link and putting it together for this part you're working on. Now, something else with the links, I just threw, now this is one of them things, I am not knocking this part right here at all. I'm not knocking nothing. I'm just telling you something that I discovered with the particular set of wheels and tires I have on now. These are just TRX4 Bronco wheels and tires. I have like a ton of sets of these things laying around the house. I use them just for throwing together on trucks. You can see these ones have never even been used. I used them for 2 minutes. This truck has 2 minutes of runtime on it. Okay, so in terms of that, with this offset, I had to limit the steering on the truck, and it really rubs the tires. And I normally run a Pitbull XL. That is my tire for my Class 2 stuff. I may run Boom Racing Hustlers on these, get them off Dixieland. That's kind of the way I'm leaning anyway. But either way, I run 4.75s. The TRX4 tires are not 4.75s. If I remember correctly, I think they're like 4.65, something like that, and they're not stamped. But you know, they're close to 4.6, 4.65, something like that. And with this particular offset, now granted, all you need is a different hex or a different wheel offset, and you can overcome this pretty easy. But just so you're aware, that's all this is, so you're aware of it. You know, the wheels I decide to actually run on there probably won't have that problem at all. This is just for mock-up for test runs. But I felt it was something that it should be shared with you. Now, what we're going to more or less get into now is the things that either A, has been brought up before, or B, that I kind of wasn't too happy with. This build was a roller coaster for me, okay? In terms of the build itself, it went together smoothly. It was not roller coaster, but what I mean by roller coaster was there's some parts that I thought for the market that this truck is in should have been done better, okay? And I guess you can call it constructive criticism. I also don't know. Enduro Element is a new brand. You know, it's possible they had to cut corners here or there or find where they could save some money to help build the brand, not relying on the race side to fund them and to build that. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes we don't know about, and we're somewhat fools if we think we do know it. So with that being said, I'm going to go over some things that I felt should have been done slightly better, and maybe a middle ground somewhere. First thing I'm going to hit on, and trust me, Axial does the same exact thing. It's not a huge deal. It's not a big concern. A lot of people upgrade this stuff anyway, but I felt for the price of this kit and what we got, that we could have had at least some metal ball inserts for at least the steering links and the top of the shocks. You know, the kit comes with the nice metal top shock caps. Those shock caps are sitting on plastic. There is a fair amount of play on these. Now, it is nowhere near as bad as the RTR version. But is there more play there than should be? I'm going to say yes, most likely. Is that going to really affect you? No, it's not. You might get a 16th of play out of that shock watt. I can just barely see it just move slightly, and then the shock reaches. Also, with the plastic inserts, be careful doing all your steering linkages and all your suspension links, because, and as well as your shocks as well, the bottom parts of your shocks, even the top part probably. If you tighten that plastic down too much, what it does is you're tightening it down, it squishes it and expands it. And what that does inside that link is actually bind you up. And your suspension, your stuff, your steering, you may have a super heavy duty steering servo in there and your steering's sluggish. Most likely that's the reason behind it. I would have liked to at least found middle ground there, and they offer the metals, okay? It would have been terrific to get some of those metals with this kit. Next, we're going to talk about the plastic, okay? This was one spot. This was probably where my roller coaster, just in terms of knowing this, probably hit its bottom point, because what we're talking about right this second is something that's so cheap. It's got to be pennies to make. All the wheel hexes that it comes with are plastic. You know, we got a metal, aluminum, or something here on top. I honestly forget what they are. But it's a metal of some kind. But we have metal here. We have metal shock caps. why do I have plastic hexes? This is probably the one that made me scratch my head the most. Now, axial hexes will go on, but you're going to have to drill the center of the hex out some. The wheel stud, and you can't see this, and I doubt it pops off for me because these are almost like a press fit on, but you'll have to take my word for it. The wheel stud has a ledge on it different than an axial does. So you need to make the hole essentially slightly larger in per se an axial hex to get it to go on the whole way and make contact with the pin the way it needs to. So just something there that I was disappointed in for what we are getting. So by all means, I'm not smashing the truck for that. I'm just saying, whenever you're putting it together, the only time I've ever seen a plastic hex, plastic hexes, of course, are fairly common in 1/10 scale race stuff. In trail trucks, the only time I've ever seen that before was a G-made Komodo. My G-made Komodo came with plastic wheel hexes, and they were a joke as well. So, but anyhow, beyond the wheel hexes, we are going to talk about the plastic, the stiffness of the chassis. I mean, that's basically what we're hearing, the elephant in the room. We're hearing chassis flex, chassis flex, chassis flex. First off, we got to think about the true weight of this truck and what its intended purpose is and what it's doing. Now, as I take the truck, and trust me, if all you do is try to make the truck into a Twizzler, I don't care what trail truck you pick up. If you try to twist it, they're not designed to do that, okay? It's not something that really happens in real life. Okay, yes, there is some chassis flex there. Whenever we take the truck and flex it out fully, and I threw a body on there, I threw a little bit of weight on the chassis, I sat it on here, and I flexed things around. I did not see any major chassis flex coming from it that would do any harm to the truck or throw you so far out of whack that you're going to have performance issues from it, especially for what its designed and intended purposes are. With that being said, I do think this is another spot where Associated or Element should have met us halfway, especially being a builder's kit. I should have opened the builder's kit up and got a hard plastic servo mount and a hard plastic rear chassis brace and the hard plastic shock towers. If not all four, at least the front two that has the panhard attached to it. I do really think they should have met us halfway on this. Not give us everything. I'm not asking for the axle housings and all that. But if Associated would have met us halfway with this, I feel it would have been a better package. And let's face it, they're molding the hard plastic anyway. All they're doing is they're giving us the hard plastic rather than these. Keep these for the RTR or replacements, what have you. So we're talking probably pennies difference in reality. So let's be real. Now, so yes, its intended purpose is not to sit there. And for the record, I have seen a worse chassis than this. I just mentioned the G-made Komodo. Well, the G-made Komodo is a Twizzler. Okay? It will twist, it will rock, and I have had to put all kinds of supports on it to keep it from doing so. It was ridiculous. So this is not as bad as that. Just kind of, yes, it is. It's not as stiff as like a TRX4, some of the other chassis, but it's not the weakest. And for its designed and what it's designed to do, I do not see any problem with the way it is. Adding brace, which I do believe the brace from the battery tray or one of these extra braces you get, if you get the hard plastic, you put it in its place. I think it's the brace up front, and then you can take and put the other brace. It lines up right back here. There's already holes in it. You put it into place and you're sturdy. It straightens you all up and you have no flex at all. So let's not make a mountain out of a molehill. It's not a make or break situation. Do I feel it should have been slightly better with what it came with in that situation? Yes, I do, and that's why I say I feel they should have met us part way, maybe a quarter of the way, maybe halfway. Give us some of it just to out of the box as a kit, stiffen things up and make it a better situation for everybody. So the plastics themselves, I don't see any issues with the axle housings. If you push on anything hard enough, if you do enough, you're going to make things flex. As I put them together, Viterra Ascenders, SCX-102s, every one of them, before I put any internals in, I moved the plastic around just to see what I have. What is it? And I didn't notice anything that much different on these housings compared to those. So, it's kind of, there's hard housings available if you want them as an upgrade. And from what I understand, they slide on rocks crazy good. But out of the box, these housings will get you through, get you running, get you done. They don't need to be anything super special. They do the job they're intended to do. So, the truck has some downfalls in regards of what they decided to include in the box. What they did upgrade, the shock caps, the metal gears inside the transmission, is tremendous. They are extremely nice. They're well done. I'm very happy with that part of it. Something to keep in mind, the metal gears inside the transmissions are heavy as all get out. They are machined. They're not machined for weight, okay? So they're solid. They're not hollowed out. They're not milled down. They're nothing. They are solid, the same thickness throughout, and it is a heavy transmission. What you're seeing here is a 2200 kV Holmes Hobbies Puller Pro Stubby with a Micro Mamba X with a 10 amp BEC. So that is what we have for the motor and ESC, and this is just a holder place servo essentially. It will have a servo winch, servo. I'm not positive which one I'm putting in it yet, so that'll get upgraded, but this is just something to get it up and running, just to play around with it. I have 2 minutes on this truck to give it any kind of review for longevity, performance. Is not right. It's BS if you think you can give a review on a truck after your 10 minutes of runtime. It's just not the way it should be done. So this is a very long-winded video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some stuff out or got a refresher or just enjoyed watching it. I mean, that's what we're here for. Hopefully help somebody. So if you have any questions, post them below in the comments section. Other than that, my initial thoughts, summary would be, I like it. There were some things I was a little disappointed in. There were some things I really liked and thought it was well thought out. And time will tell in terms of durability and where it goes. Let's face it, this transmission will bolt right to an axial SCX-10 skid. As far as what I understand, they sell this transmission separate just for that fact. It's a $50 transmission. Let's say I have an SCX-10 too. My son's is a prime example. Okay, he has a kit version. I have the boom keyed overdrive in his front axle. If I took this transmission, put on his truck with his overdrive still installed, that'd give me like a 20, roughly, we're just going to say a 22.5% overdrive to the front axle. That's like perfect. That's right where, that's right where we want to be at. So in terms of getting hardcore into the review of the frame of this, let's face it, there is so much You know, I've seen already on Facebook where none of this frame is even left. All it is a transmission, and they may have taken the shocks. So where the price point of this is, I feel is slightly high. But like I say, we do not know the important stuff's behind the curtain. It's a new division for Associated. They do not, I'm sure they don't need to lose money on it. So that's kind of something to keep in the back of your mind. Let's see what they do with the brand. Let's see if they support events by sponsoring some stuff, showing up, doing a lot of good. And I'm not talking just big events, because that's where I have a little bit of a problem with stuff too, because you'll see these companies at big events, but you will not see them at small ones. So let's see how Enduro handles themselves, or Element handles themselves. And, you know, I can take the stuff that it didn't come with a grain of rice and move on. It's a tiny truck. I'm happy. I'm going to have fun with it. So I think it's well put together. It's a good package. There's some things where I see that are chintzier than what they should be for the price. But there's other spots of it that are well done, extremely well done. So yes, chassis flex is there slightly. A couple supports and it's fixed. Nothing to write a book about. You know, it's not the end of the world. Plastic ball studs, same deal. Put metal ones in. I think they're maybe $6 or something like that. Even if it's 10 or 12 or $15, throw metal ones in there. It's the little things like that, you know, either help or hurt. I think it's going to struggle some from that, but you know, it's a great kit. It was fun to put together. It was easy. If you got one coming, don't be discouraged. Put it together. I think you'll enjoy it. You will need a pinion gear. It does not come with a pinion. So just so you know, pinion gear will be needed. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Leave your questions in the comments. And sorry for such a long video, but that is what it is. My initial thoughts on it. Good and bad. And we'll see how it goes. Plan on throwing a body on it soon and getting it on some rocks, some dirt, and hopefully get it into some mud here soon. So take care, everybody. Thank you for watching. I truly appreciate your time. I appreciate you looking at it. And enjoy yourself. Enjoy the hobby. And if you're at a point where you think that you're not in a good spot with the hobby, take a little break. I've done it plenty of times, and come back to it. Nothing wrong with that, and it'll still be there for you. Take care, everyone. Enjoy yourself.